We have a lot to talk about today. We have heard for years now about how the infamous J6 pipe bomber was a far-right, white, nationalist Trump voter who was attempting to overthrow the United States federal government. This was beaten into our heads for years by the Democrats and the far-left media. But as it would turn out, ladies and gentlemen, today, we now know for an absolute fact that the J6 pipe bomber was actually, as a matter of fact, an African-American far-left radical, and that Joe Biden's FBI, under the Biden administration's leadership, they sat on the evidence of this for 4 years, really playing coverage for him. And so we are going to break down that entire dynamic. There is a lot to talk about there. Now, today also, President Trump scored an absolutely massive legal victory in the United States Supreme Court. The Democrats right now are collectively losing their minds. They are really not so happy about this Supreme Court decision. And the reason why is because it's going to have an absolutely massive impact in the upcoming midterms. We are 10, maybe 11 months away, 10 and a half months away from midterms. And then on top of that, Trump's DOJ, the Department of Justice, is now engaging in an absolutely massive nationwide legal battle, suing 14 individual far-left blue states in an attempt to shut down all of the Democrats' voter fraud. Voter fraud, remember, we've been told for a long time that voter fraud doesn't exist. Well, that's what these 14 individual lawsuits are about. And by the way, already several of these far-left Democrat-run blue states are already surrendering to the Trump administration's demands. So, folks, like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. If you could, real quick, do me a favor. Go ahead and drop a follow. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, follow here, subscribe, like, do it all. It helps with the algorithm. It really does help a lot. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let's get into the show. I think probably the best place to start is, as they say, the very beginning. This is what we heard from Pam Bondi as it relates to the J6 pipe bomber development earlier today. Let's get into it.
Early this morning, Brian Cole Jr. was arrested and charged with placing the pipe bombs at the RNC and the DNC on January 5th, 2021. He has been charged with violating 18 U.S.C. 844, which is use of an explosive device. This investigation is ongoing. As we speak, search warrants are being executed, and there could be more charges to come. I'm going to let our U.S. attorney discuss that shortly. This was the work of multiple agencies working together. This morning's operation was carried out safely and successfully.
So, ladies and gentlemen, they got him. And now we know exactly who this is. This is Brian Cole Jr. This is the man that they have detained, 30 years old. It's crazy. He's just been running around for the last 4 years. Here he is, different pictures. Looks like he's actually gained some weight. Maybe he's been so stressed out over the last 4 years that he's been stress eating. Looks like he's packed on the pounds a little bit. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Brian Cole Jr., the 30-year-old Virginia man, arrested earlier today for placing pipe bombs outside of the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 5th, 2021, ran statewide bail bonds, a company, with his father, get this, which specialized in freeing illegal aliens from ICE custody, and sued the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security in 2019 during his first term in the White House over alleged discriminatory practices, losing the case on November 10th, 2020, just a couple weeks before he would then go on to carry out these attempted pipe bombing attacks. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we were all taught for years. Really, this has been the ongoing narrative for the last 4.5 years. is that the J6 pipe bomber, don't ask how, we're not going to tell you, but just trust us. The J6 pipe bomber, he was a far right-wing, radical, extremist, domestic terrorist, white supremacist, Trump voter. He was placing these pipe bombs because Trump lost the election. He was trying to overthrow the federal government or whatever. And this was the narrative that we all had to hear for years, for almost half a decade, from the left-wing media and from the Democrats, the Democrat establishment. Well. What do we have here? Now, they carried out a warrant on this individual's house. Take a look earlier today.
A very heavy police presence at the home of the suspect they have identified in the D.C. pipe bomb probe. So this is a live look
nice
from
house.
The Fox 5 D.C. helicopter. As you see in a cul-de-sac, the FBI now at the home of this suspect. And we were learning more earlier as we were hearing from the FBI after they announced that they made an arrest in the nearly 5-year-old investigation into who placed pipe bombs in Washington, D.C. before the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. This arrest marks the first time investigators have settled on a suspect in an act that has had a long investigation by law enforcement and also led to some conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, today, we are actually going to talk about some of those conspiracy theories because, like I said in the intro of today's broadcast, is that Joe Biden's FBI, they actually just sat on the evidence. There has been no new evidence brought forth. It's evidence that they already had. They had the entire time, and we're going to break that down here in a minute. They just sat on it, doing nothing. They just let this guy, they didn't really care. They didn't really care to follow the case of the pipe bomber. I think that's a pretty important case. And so now we actually are starting to get some answers. Pam Bondi, our current attorney general, goes on to say,
this cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Pirro and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years.
It's the same evidence. There's no new evidence. They've just been sitting on it this entire time.
Let me be clear. There was no new tip. There was no new witness. Just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, working as a team, along with ATF, Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, and of course, the FBI. Now,
speaking of FBI, as we sort of peel back the layers with this entire process, we hear from FBI Director Kash Patel. He chimed in. They had a whole press conference earlier this morning. We'll take a listen to what he had to say.
When you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. And this FBI and this Department of Justice stand here to tell you that we will always refute it and combat it. We will provide the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case of massive public importance, as it should be. An individual who is now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested thanks to the brave men and women of the FBI and the interagency. I want to take a moment to thank the Metropolitan Police Department, the United States Capitol Police, our brave prosecutors, the Department of Justice, and our leader, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro, whose relentless work on this case made this possible. As the Attorney General said, we did not discover any new information. What we did, an investigation spearheaded by the deputy director and the ADIC of our Washington field office, brought in a new team of investigators and experts, re-examined every piece of evidence, sifted through all the data something that the prior administration refused and failed to do. As a result of that, we generated numerous investigative leads, executed multiple legal process with our U.S. attorney partners, and came to this conclusion today. And that is why we were able to safely secure this individual into custody. Remember, we are dealing with an individual who is alleged to have made bombs. We cannot do this sort of takedown in haste because it endangers the lives of law enforcement. And this FBI will never allow the lives of law enforcement and our prosecutors to be put in jeopardy.
So, as he just said, it's the same evidence. They haven't found any new evidence. It's the same evidence. It's the same evidence, all the same information that the Joe Biden administration and Joe Biden's FBI had when Joe Biden was in the White House. What they did do is fire some of the old people, or at least pull them off the case inside the FBI, and then put some new people on the case. They tasked some of Trump's guys, these new Trump FBI members of the FBI, put them on the case, and within a couple months, hasn't even been a year, boom, now we've got the guy. And once again, the Biden administration, they just sat on their hands doing nothing. And I'll tell you the reason why this is so important is because, listen, the left is they're very aggressive. The far left, they are incredibly aggressive about, framing Trump and all of his supporters as being white supremacist, far right, Nazi, fascist, threats to democracy. And they will just fabricate information and push fake news, bullcrap, in order to try to push that agenda. And this is one of the most prominent narratives that they have been running with for years, for about 5 years now, that, well, the J6 pipe bomber, he was a disgruntled Trump voter. He was mad that the election was stolen from Trump. He tried to help Trump overthrow the government, carry out an insurrection. And so he's a white supremacist Trump voter who put a bunch of pipe bombs all over Washington, D.C., outside the DNC and the RNC headquarters. Well, once again, it was actually a disgruntled far-left radical who had issue with Trump because Trump was trying to shut down illegal immigration. And it was actually him that placed these bombs. And on top of that, he was an African-American man. And, now we're actually starting to see some of these arrests. And already, people can't help themselves. People say, we need to see arrests. We need arrests. And then when we actually do finally get an arrest, they say, well, this is fake news. There's a conspiracy. I don't believe it. It's like, really? You can't just take the W. You can't just take the victory. We are finally being given an arrest. We actually have an arrest. It's the same evidence we've always had. The case seems to be pretty solid. We've got the guy walking on video. They traced all his footsteps, and we say, oh, well, it's actually, there's something more going on. You can't just take the victory, really. We got to take the win. And it is because this is a slam dunk. We have shut the door on this far left, anti-white, anti-Trump, anti-conservative narrative. And it's a good thing. Now, Dan Bongino comes out, and he actually clarifies that the evidence here is forensic. We have forensic evidence linking this guy.
Yeah, sure. I was smiling at you because I certainly remember the moment. Darren remembers it too. He said, are you sitting down? He called me on the phone. I said, oh boy, why? Is this bad news? And he said, I think we got him. What exactly that tip was, we're going to have to pass on that for right now while obviously we're in the prologue of a long book. This is just the beginning. This is not the end of the investigation, as you all well know, having reported on these for a long time. There's interviews to be conducted. The search warrant processing scene is not even done. So we're at the early stages, so that's the only reason I hesitate to tell you what the exact tip was. But yes, that was absolutely the moment, and it was due to the diligent and incredible work of a team in the Washington field office that came in and just scoured through this over and over and over and over again.
In general, was it forensic? Was it a phone call? Was it something about a vehicle?
I'd rather, we'll just leave it generally, forensic evidence. Yeah, it's fair enough to say.
Okay.
Excuse me?
How long ago that was?
I'd rather not say because of the ongoing interview process, and I don't want to. Yeah.
So this is coming from Dan Bongino. We have forensic evidence, like physical evidence linking this guy to the pipe bombing. Now, I think this is where, okay, we know that this is the guy. This is where I think it is fitting to start asking some follow-up questions. And we're going to do that right now. Was this individual a lone wolf? Did he do this on his own? Who taught him how to make pipe bombs? I don't know. Maybe you could Google it. We've seen photos of the bombs. The bombs, allegedly, I'm not a member of the CIA. I guess people say that the pipe bombs that he created are very similar in fashion or style to CIA training bombs, where they're teaching CIA agents how to make bombs or dismantle, that these J6 pipe bombs are very similar to those ones. I don't know all the details of that. Maybe nobody does. This is where I think we need to go. We know the guy. We know this is him. We've got the forensic evidence. Now we need to know, did he work with anyone else? So this is the next step. Now we subpoena his entire internet history. Now we subpoena his phone logs, his text messages, his emails, everything. I want to know every single person that this guy spoke to leading up to the attack or the attempted attack on January 6th, January 5th, actually. And real also since then, it's been 4.5, almost 5 years. Who has he been talking to since then? Subpoena all of that. Get a hold and scour through all of that. That's of the utmost importance. Was he talking to, I don't know, members of Joe Biden's FBI or Joe Biden's CIA? Because we know that Joe Biden's FBI covered this up. We know that they sat on their hands and just let this guy off the hook. So was he actually working with somebody inside of Joe Biden's FBI or Joe Biden's CIA? Was he, I don't know, texting Nancy Pelosi? I don't know. Now, Dan Bongino, what he just said is we have the forensic evidence. This is the beginning of the investigation. There's more information to come. But they had enough evidence to get a warrant. They raided his house, and now he's under arrest. He's in custody right now. So, this is step one. We're off to a good start. Now we need more information. FBI Director Kash Patel just revealed that the Biden FBI will be exposed in court for covering up the January 6th pipe bomber. Now we're getting a little bit more exciting here.
Will there ever be a look back on the way, perhaps your predecessors or other people in the FBI handle this to question those methods and motives? Again, the fact that it disappeared, from the news basically the second, January 6th happened and was never brought back up again, even in the months following. It seems odd. And I mean, it seems like something that people would want answers to. Will there be a review process on how this was conducted differently, how you guys could do this, 4 years later and in, 8 or 9 months, actually come up with a suspect versus the prior administration having 4 years, a more immediate timeline, being able to go right into it, having the immediacy of that, or, even the fact that they just didn't care, doesn't that say so much about the weaponization of justice in America today?
Absolutely, and I think you're going to see it on parallel tracks. What you're going to see is as this case presents itself in court, you're going to see where we were able to collect the evidence and make the case against this suspect. And then common sense journalism and investigators are going to be able to look at it and say, why did these people do X, Y, and Z 4 or 5 years ago? That's going to make itself self-apparent. But what we're doing at this FBI is also we have replaced this entire leadership cadre. We have pushed out 1,000 agents into the field. There's a reason this FBI has 25,000 violent offenders arrested this year alone. That's twice as many as last year. There's a reason that this FBI is going to deliver President Trump the lowest murder rate in modern history by double digits. There's a reason this FBI is out there crushing fentanyl, destroying narco traffickers, and making sure the homeland is safe and preventing spies from infiltrating our homeland and our way of life. That's what happens when you change leadership from the prior administration FBI who wanted to weaponize and politicize law enforcement to us, President Trump and the Attorney General, who want to just deliver law enforcement on every single front. And that's what we're doing. So you're going to see it in both lanes.
So they are doing a whole investigatory retrospective. Who was involved in this? Who did this guy talk to? They're going to get the logs. They're going to figure that out. Who internally just like didn't do anything? Who knew about this? Who sat on their hands? Who internally turned a blind eye to this? Who made that decision? Now, there is also something worth saying here that I know is maybe going to upset some people. Not everything is always a conspiracy. Sometimes lone actors exist. Now, real quick, what is the definition of conspiracy? A definition of a conspiracy is two or more people working together for some end goal. I am in a conspiracy with my wife to raise healthy, productive, respectful children. I am conspiring with my wife to do that. That is a conspiracy. It's two or more people working together to accomplish something. So we might have a conspiracy case here where somebody did work with this individual, where they were trading text messages or somebody paid him. I don't know. Who the hell knows? They're just starting to peel back the layers. It is also possible that this guy was just a lone actor, that he was on his own. That's also a possibility. But this, lack of knowing right now, this is what warrants the investigation. Look into it. And I think we're all saying that right now. Look into it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is kind of the introductory to all of this J6 news right now. This pipe bomber, they've got a name. He's been arrested. The investigation is ongoing. Okay. All right. That's a good step. This is the first step in this direction that we have had in almost 5 years. Great.